Hi, I'm Greg Yulin with Reynolds and Reynolds, and this is Connected. Exciting day today. I'm sitting across the table from Shawn Concannon, president of TSD Mobility Solutions. Really looking forward to this conversation. Shawn, thanks so much for joining.
Greg, excited to be here.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation. Full disclosure, I want to let everybody know, if they didn't know already, Reynolds acquired TSD a couple months ago now. It was kind of August of 2024. But an expansion of kind of our footprint, and obviously it's been a great partnership so far. Looking forward to a lot more. But wanted to have you on to just get a better understanding of TSD, what you do, and then we'll probably go down some rabbit holes here and there. But
Sounds
I guess maybe start, Shawn, if you don't mind. I feel like everybody I talk to has a fun origination story, how they got into automotive. It seems like very few did it on purpose, but once we're here, it's too much fun to leave. So I don't know, what was your experience?
Yeah, for me, so when I got out of college, I decided to go rent cars with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So that was my first exposure to automotive. I was in the local market with Enterprise, and so we did a lot of body shops, service stations, but did a lot of dealership, work there. So that was really didn't think I'd be renting cars out of college, but nonetheless I was. That was really my first start into automotive, and haven't looked. I've been in it ever since. So
yeah.
it was a great foundation for me, and for where I then headed off into TSD with.
Sure. I mean, by all accounts, I've known a lot of people who have worked with Enterprise and worked in kind of their management development program. By all accounts, it's a pretty robust program, and there's a lot of people that have grown from that, both inside of Enterprise, but then also moving on, to other things as well. So everything I've heard has been great about that program.
Yeah, it was an amazing program. I mean, they really, back when I started with them, they really gave you once you got through training, really the keys to run your own location, your own area, your own region and stuff like that, everything from renting the cars all the way back to the P&L. So it really sets you up as almost like a mini business owner amongst this huge organization and stuff, which was, kind of crazy. So you made sales decisions, employee decisions, everything. It was a great experience for me.
Yeah, that is. I actually sold with a guy years ago, one of the best sales reps I remember, and he came from Enterprise to Reynolds, and the transition was a little rocky, but once you learn the new business, the skills and the experience really shine through. So that's interesting that you kind of came from that background. So let's talk a little bit about TSD then.
Sure.
Obviously, well, I guess why don't you start with just give me the high level overview for anybody that doesn't know. I mean, candidly, I wasn't super familiar with TSD prior to the acquisition. So share for the audience, I guess, just high level, kind of 30,000 foot overview of TSD.
Yeah, we're a technology company based in North Andover, Massachusetts, which is about 25 miles north of Boston. The company's been in business for 40 plus years, so it's
So it's not a startup.
It's not a startup, far from it. I think there's been 6 or 7 iterations of our rental application since, and the company's evolved as technology's evolved. Obviously, we're a mid-sized company with 125 plus employees. We really got our start back in the day, providing technology to local car rental operators, then expanded into franchising, then expanded into really dealership rental markets. And the company then expanded its footprint either further when Lexus came to us 22 years ago and said, hey, can you guys build us a solution? But we don't have rentals. We have this novel idea of loan cars. We had no idea what that was at the time, nor did really people. So we expanded the business and really started getting into the dealership market around the service loaners. So if you fast forward to today, we provide technology in really 2 main arenas: the dealership OEM space, and then also in the car rental space. And we provide everything from fleet management solutions to reservation systems to now pickup and delivery software, telematics, and all that good stuff, which we can get into.
Yeah. So coming into this conversation, I was thinking I was going to be able to ask you a clean question of, so what came first, rental car or dealerships? But it sounds like they were really one and the same, right? And then it's just kind of expanded from one central point. Is that a fair assessment?
That is, yeah. I mean, if you look in the industry today, there's a fair amount of franchise rental, car operators. But if you look behind the scene there, it's actually a dealership operation that's now, using that as kind of a used car pipeline, and they rent cars and stuff like that. So rental did come first for us. But we go back probably 30 plus years with Toyota Rent-A-Car and, the old FRAC, Ford Rent-A-Car and DRAC programs with Dodge and stuff like that. They've evolved a lot now. And I think now when you look at everything, although two separate markets, there's a lot of crossover and blend between those two industries.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting point too, because you think about, Reynolds, right? And you think about TSD, and yeah, they're in somewhat different, I guess, markets or categories, you might say, but I think your point's kind of understated in that there's a lot of overlap there, especially when you get to the business owner, right? And you look at across an enterprise, how much that ties in.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, so for us, really, the attractiveness to Reynolds is you're a strategic, amazing partner already in the space.
Right.
And some would say, well, Reynolds doesn't really know anything about car rental. But as I just mentioned, most dealers are car rental operators. Most car rental operators need to buy, sell, and service cars. Right. So there's this amazing overlap. And although not in the car rental space, very, very, close to it. And, having a company like TSD now aboard gives both organizations a lot more, involvement with the fleet of vehicles and stuff like that, which becomes super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about just, vehicle kind of life cycle management.
Oh, yeah.
From acquisition through, and you could run it as a rental, right? And then you flip it to a used vehicle and move on. So, there's a lot of interesting tentacles to that once you start going.
No
doubt. So you mentioned Lexus being kind of the first OEM that came to you. Obviously, a lot of OEMs have programs now. So when I think about a dealer, especially a dealer group, right? So I have 10 different franchises, let's say. Every franchise has maybe its own kind of program. In your experience, what's the best way to handle that, right? I mean, aside from, just get with TSD, but, tactically on the ground, boots on the ground, like how do you manage these different programs effectively? How do you manage the vehicles effectively? Again, not really worried about the software, more so process-wise. How do you make sure you're kind of checking the boxes, but also operationally functioning really well?
Yeah, I would say at its core, if you took the actual OEM flag out of the mix, it's pretty much how do you finish the service process with transportation attached to it, whether it's going to be a loan car rental or an Uber Lyft. Today's customer is expecting some type of transportation office. Long gone are the days that, hey, I'm willing to wait 3 or 4 hours and do work while you work on my car.
Yeah.
So for us, we really remove the which OE is it or which brand is it. It's more about the process, and more so now than ever, it's really about the speed in which you can get somebody in and out. And we try to tell dealers, and dealers know it pretty well, that if that whole end-to-end process for service is, between the 10 and 15 minute range, then you're probably going to score pretty highly with that customer on CSI. The loan car becomes a piece of that, especially the back half, and we're usually the last part of that service. So for us, getting a proper system in place and really having dealers kind of adopt mobile technology and, not bring the customer inside, not have them sit in your waiting lounge, get coffee and stuff, but more greet them on the drive with a tablet or a phone and do that right there, and then do the real owner transaction out there that's where we're really headed, future state.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, thinking about that then, when we have customer comes in, right, we do a write-up, we do a loaner deal. Actually, let me take a step back from that, because you mentioned also Uber and Lyft and just really transportation, right, bigger bucket. So for a dealer, is there like a threshold, an RO volume, number of customers where it makes sense to start to go to a loaner car fleet? Like, is there what's that number?
It used to be, it used to be when I first started with TSD. You had a lot of dealers who didn't want to have their own loaners. They would savine that business out to Enterprise, Hertz, or get them a cab or make them wait. I think the luxuries change that in the sense that consumers demanded, hey, I'm bringing in my BMW, I'm bringing my Lexus, I'm bringing in my Mercedes. I need a replacement car to get to work or go home.
Yeah.
Now everybody does it, so it's just not the luxury brands that do that. And it's pretty difficult for a dealer once they give Greg a loaner car the first time to tell you the next time, hey, I need you to wait. So it becomes really they've set now the bar to what that customer expectation is. But from the dealer, it's not so bad either because these guys, it's a used car pipeline for them. So you're exposing these customers to new product. But more importantly, you're also with them, you're also selling them more business. They're not waiting, putting pressure on you to get the car done. They've got transportation.
Yeah.
Their life's not being inconvenienced. So you can sell them more service, when they're out there. So generally today, it's not about do I need software with 10 cars? It's if you got one or two cars, you should have it automated, and it should be, helping you, get that customer through your service drive even quicker than you can, handwriting an agreement.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any instances where it just doesn't make sense for a dealer to have loaners? I mean, I think about even Uber and Lyft, right? In a lot of cases, we have a partnership with Draver where you can kind of order an Uber and the dealership can have it there for the customer when they make the appointment. There's a lot of integrations that can happen, especially with those types of services. So is there any situation where it just doesn't make sense? Because it's not an insignificant investment to have a fleet of cars there to let people use.
Yeah, I think we see it's not that they don't have cars, but they offer other transportation in markets like New York City or downtown Philly. So you're really downtown constricted markets where I might drop a car for service and I may be going to work for the day. And I don't want the hassle of parking a loaner car, paying $50 a day to do it. So those markets become tough markets you got to have more than just, hey, we're going to give everyone a loaner car. I think the other, interest is, if you're running fast service or some type of expedited service where you're, telling the person, hey, if you bring your car in, you're going to be out in 60, 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. Probably doesn't make too much sense to give someone a car in that instance. But in most cases, what we see across the country today with pretty much every OE and dealer supported programs, that there's some type of RHO requirement backed to the actual loan car, meaning if I do a certain amount of ROs a day, I need to carry this type or this many cars in fleet to kind of support that service business.
Yeah. Is there a template for who to offer a loaner to? So, if
That's a great question.
Is it when I'm a service advisor or a service manager, and I have 10 cars, let's say, and I have 40 people coming through today or whatever the number is, they can't all have a car, right? So who do I give a car to?
It's the one question I ask to fixed ops directors, service managers, service directors. That's the one question where it differentiates the really, really good dealers with an operation with the ones that are they really just don't know how to run a loan car fleet. Yeah. Is that question you just asked me is who gets a car here, who doesn't get a car here. So what we typically see in the market today is there's like an hours threshold. So if there's 2.5 hours of work, or if I got to keep your car overnight, or whatever the case may be, that's what deems a person will get a car or not. I think long gone are the days that you have to buy a car here and service it here and all that stuff to get a car. I think those days are kind of gone, and short-sightedness is kind of gone with the dealers. But we also have some dealer groups, down in Texas. Their belief is you get a car no matter what. They just flat out don't want you, waiting at all. They see the value and the RO value of having people in cars, and there's just thousands and thousands of cars down there.
Yeah. So for dealers that do that, I wonder then, what percentage of those service customers also get an offer to buy their car that's in for service? I mean, is it 100, or is it darn close to it, or is that not the play? Because in my head, it's like if I'm going to give everybody a car, yes, it's customer service for sure, but it's also an opportunity to put somebody in a new car, let them have it for a day, let them smell it for a day, let them realize that there's some miles on it, right? And even if just the shocks and struts need replaced, it's still, this new one rides a lot nicer. So, I mean, what percentage is that the play?
That is the play. Yeah. There's two great stories I always tell people. I was at a store down in Louisiana one time when their GM made their sales consultants in the morning actually put people in loaner cars. And I saw this and I was like, wow, this is really, really smart, because the salespeople were telling them, all these service customers, about all these new great features and the new cars and stuff like that. I was like, that was really, really smart. And then the other story I always tell is we've got a store pretty close to us in Massachusetts, a BMW store. And when you step in that loaner car for service, it'll tell you how much you can lease or buy that car for. And when you know it, none of those cars see their end of life, to your point. I'm bringing my 5, 6, 10-year-old car in service. I just jumped into a brand new car. It's time to move. So, yeah, I mean, I think if dealers view it as not a cost tool, but more of an exposure sales tool, I think it softens the blow of, wow, these things cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's marketing expense. You can look at it that way all day long. Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it is wild too. Even as good as cars are made today, to your point, if a car is 5 years old and you get into a brand new one, the tech is so much cooler, right? The ride is so much quieter and smoother, and you're just like, wait, I thought I had a nice car, and then
it always gets better.
It's crazy, and they just it just seems like the bar keeps going up. And
it
up
does.
and up.
It does. It really does.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a fun world to be in for sure. Something else that we had talked about before we started recording was pickup and delivery. So thinking about the loaner car is one thing, and that's one way to operate, right? But then you have, to your point, different methods of transportation. So do you have a shuttle? There's all these different ways to do it, Uber and Lyft, and another one's pickup and delivery. So what does that look like? And I guess, is it a replacement for a supplement to a loaner? Like how do kind of good dealers leverage that?
So I think some dealers have been doing pickup and delivery for decades, just due to the sheer fact of maybe they they have a very big geographic area. COVID and the pandemic brought around, well, how do I get somebody from their house to the dealership, or how do I get a loaner car out to them and stuff? I'm living proof of that. So my dealer offered pickup and delivery during the pandemic. I was like, this is fantastic. I didn't have to leave my place of work. They came and got it for me, no traffic. It literally saved me an hour and a half going back and forth to the dealer. We fast forward to now, and we've got a few OEMs out there and others that if you buy a certain model, or if you're a Lincoln dealer or a Genesis dealer, pickup and delivery is part of your new car buy and part of your service contract. I view pickup and delivery as an enhanced service nowadays, that somebody like myself that's willing to pay for that service now to save myself time is going to do that and expect that of dealers. But take a look at how people, buy stuff online, the DoorDashes, groceries. I mean, people don't want to go to brick and mortar so much anymore, and people are working more now than ever, and having a convenience of pickup and delivery is great. So for us, building that piece into our software was really, really key for us. And I don't think it's for everybody, because you got to employ a fleet of drivers and people to make this magic happen, and that's not easy. But I do think, at least for the people on the receiving end of pickup and delivery, to get a loan car delivered to your work, to have your car brought back to service and never really to leave, that's just a really high level of service that a customer gets.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories, and just hearing that example takes me back to it. We have a customer out in Arizona, and they have it's a children's hospital, but a big employer across the highway from them, and they partnered with this hospital and installed a kiosk unit at the hospital. So, these folks that are working at the hospital, they can come in the morning, right, 7 a.m. They schedule their service. They drop their keys in the kiosk, and then the dealership comes over, picks up the car, takes it back across the street, does the work, bills them, sends them a link to pay for their work, brings the car back to the parking lot, they get off, and the car's right there. But there's things like that where there's probably a lot of points along the way where you could also implement, pick up and drop off, or the loaner's just waiting there for you. Hey, by the way, sorry, Shawn, once we got underneath the vehicle, there's some other things going on. Need you to approve this work. We're gonna have to order the parts. Right. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna keep your car, obviously, but we're gonna put the keys to the loaner that we have for you back in that same slot, so you can just pick that up when you're done. So I don't know. It kind of takes it to the next level. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not only have the cars evolved immensely, but the operational procedures and customer demands have evolved, tremendously. So I always tell dealers and businesses, if you're not evolving with that, you're kind of going to be left behind a little bit.
Yeah.
And customers will eventually gravitate to dealers that offer more services, enhanced services, and stuff like that naturally.
Yeah, and one of the things too, I talk about a lot and think about a lot is these pockets where dealers find ways to add value, right, and find ways to create profit centers. Going back, all the way back to the F&I office, right, and carrying it forward to every little piece of the puzzle along the way. But you look at aligning financing, you look at being a marketplace for aftermarket products. You look at making sure that all the documents are signed properly. So you're almost acting as a regulatory firm, right? The dealer adds so much value throughout a transaction. But to do that, they have to. They're not as a result of that, I guess, they're also creating profit for themselves, right? These opportunities. One of the things I wanted to touch base with you on was thinking about the loaner, right? And many of those programs are predicated by the OEM, but shifting from a loaner to a rental operation inside the dealership. So especially if it's going to be more than a day, right? If I need to give somebody a car for a week, right? Maybe I have an opportunity for them to rent that car, right? Pay me for it rather than just give it to them for a week. So wanted your perspective on what you're seeing across the industry, across OEMs in that world. Is there an opportunity there for dealers going forward to maybe even create another profit center?
There is. Some dealers have been doing this for 50 years and doing it very, very well.
Yeah.
But by and large, most dealers do not take that courtesy car fleet and want to make the investment or change their operations to go to rental. We're starting to see that trend kind of flip back a little bit now. Because the OEMs are starting to allow it, so they're saying, "Hey, we're going to allow you to take a traditional loan car program and allow you to do rentals and stuff like that." And B, the OEM wants more exposure to the car. It's not necessarily to a client that's bringing their car for service, but if someone on the street wants to try a Subaru or try a Lexus, whatever the case, what better way to try it than rent it for the weekend and give them that opportunity? We feel that there's a huge opportunity here because if you look at just the life cycle, a weekly life cycle of a car for service, that loan car is usually going to be used pretty highly from Monday and probably going to come back or cycle out probably on a Thursday. So sure. If you look at the utilization of that car, it generally is going to be sitting Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's a great opportunity to offer test drives or rentals for the weekends. It's no different than what Enterprise does. They're a local market player. They put those cars to the body shops during Monday through Thursday, and on the weekends they were notorious for their weekend special out there, which they still push very heavily. Dealers need to adapt to that model and understand that they've got a pretty decent chunk of their fleet sitting over the weekend. Why not make some money on that? There are very few places out there where you can rent a Lexus, you can rent a Honda, you can rent a Subaru. These are OEMs that do not sell cars generally to car rental operators and stuff. So they have a commodity that people can't get or try for a good chunk of time. So it's definitely a good play. Many dealers do it today.
Yeah.
Subaru opened up their program probably about 2 years ago to start allowing their dealers to start renting a car, and they got a really, really great dealer out, and two of them actually out in Salt Lake City who just do a fantastic job of renting cars on over the weekends, and they've got kayaks, everything you can attach to it as well, which makes it a really cool experience. So I think if dealers are looking to get into that, obviously our technology will support that and stuff, but that should be a decent little profit center to kind of regain some of that cost on that car.
So how do dealers, the ones that you're seeing be successful in this area, how do they market it? Because as a consumer, right? My go-to for a rental car for the weekend isn't, well, I'm going to call up the dealership down the road.
That's right.
So how do they market it?
It's the $1 million question. So what we generally want them to do first is, I always point to the website first. How do I know you rent cars? We want them to hook that website to TSD, meaning a customer should know they rent cars on there. And if they do rent cars on there, how can I rent a car from that website? Not have a dealer employee call me, or I have to call into a dealership, but the same as I do on Expedia or on any car rentals website. I can land on it, I can pick my dates, I can get my rate, I can put in my info and rent a car. That's baseline to have a good rental operation today. Secondarily, to your point, is how are you getting your name out there? A couple dealers we know about do a lot of radio ads, they do a lot of print ads. When you walk inside their dealership, you know that you can rent cars there. Most dealers, you don't know that.
Sure.
So to your point, the bread and butter is really figuring out how they're going to get that name out into the local market, to say that, hey, we rent cars. Another avenue we see dealers go down a lot as well is if they got a body shop on site, or if they have some shops that they sub out some of their business to, go down to those shops. That's good rental business for them to provide some of their rentals to some of those body shop replacements or some of those customers that have cracked up their car and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good avenue. So when I think about just listening to you describe that, and I think about marketing a lot of times in two buckets, right? You have proactive and you have reactive.
Right.
Proactive, you're trying to generate demand. Reactive, you're trying to capture the demand. So, when I think about rentals, it's probably mostly going to be reactive, right? I want to have a net out there to capture that demand.
Correct.
So, you're talking about the website. I think that's a great opportunity too for Google Ads and just simple things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can capture that demand when somebody's searching, when somebody's looking, just be there, right? And have compelling copy to bring them, and then to your point, make it very, very easy for them to reserve that vehicle and come pick it up tomorrow. So,
yeah, renting cars from a local dealer is a lot cheaper than an airport nowadays. I mean, most airports nowadays, you're carrying anywhere from $20 to $30 just in fees and concession fees and stuff like that. Not including the hassle of driving to the airport. How do you leave your car there and stuff and all that good stuff. So I think it's an attractive space for dealers. They don't need to be a local Hertz or Enterprise.
Sure.
That's not what we're looking for them to do. But to do 10, 15 rentals on a weekend consistently is going to generate a decent amount of revenue for them.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective. Well, Shawn, this has been a great conversation. What haven't we talked about that we should? What haven't I asked you that I should have?
I think we covered a lot of great topics. Yeah. You hit on it. It was good questions.
No, it's fun.
Questions.
Fun conversation. Definitely appreciate you. Appreciate you sitting down. We'll have to do it again soon. Maybe when I know a little bit more, right, about the industry. I'll have to come out and ride with you and learn a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right, good deal. Well, Shawn, thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Well, that was a fun conversation with Shawn Concannon of TSD. So excited that he could join me in studio. If you haven't looked at TSD, take a look at it. It seems like a great product. I learned a lot today. Hopefully you did too. Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.